Hello, this is part 3, Human Relationships, Values and Ethics. Please subscribe and hit the button to know when new things are up and running for you to see, and tell me whether you like it or not. So this exercise means constructing 4 areas in quadrants or in a list, it doesn't matter. Mom's values, dad's values, your culture at large, and your mentor values. So let me go through these as you write these down. Mom's values. If a mom was in your life, and probably was, whoever was that person who took care of you early on and throughout your childhood, what did that person's behavior tell you about what they valued? Not what they said, but how they behaved. The second is a dad's values. If a dad was in your life, at least the person who was in that role, what did their behavior suggest to you were core values to them? And then culture at large, and by this I mean maybe your local culture, but maybe your state or the most dominant subculture that you had. What did that suggest as values to you? And then a mentor could be a grandparent, a boss, a teacher, almost anybody, a coach that you looked up to for a long period of time. What did their behavior suggest to you? Now I want you to write down as many of those that are clear to you, and so pause the video. Okay, coming back, what differences do you see among those 3 or 4? Okay, and which one of those had the biggest influence on you? Not the one that you most agree with, that you are most consistent with now, because an influence could be someone who pushed you in opposite directions. But which ones were the most influential? Can you see an influence in all of those? If I were to add internet and social media and friends, what would that look like? Okay. Now, as we move forward in a number of exercises to determine what your core values are, I want you to think ahead of time about something. Are the values you're going to choose, or that you know you have, chosen by you freely? And are you aware of other possibilities for these? There are other possibilities for your top 10, top 5? Yeah. Are you going to choose them because you feel good about them, because you need to? And are you able to publicly affirm them? Are you aware that you're choosing them and no one else is? No one else is telling you at this point what you're supposed to value? Are these things ones you're going to actively support with your behavior? Okay, think about those things in advance. It's important to develop a core list, a core real list of values, because if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. Like people who are members of cults. Cults look for people who are lost, and the definition of people who are lost are people who are not really in touch with their core value system. And when you're not, when you're struggling, when you're lost in terms of who you really are, you can easily be manipulated. And that's what cults do. They offer you food, water, warmth, rest, safety, and security, and then they build you up from there to acquire the values which they then support and reward that they have, not the ones that are yours necessarily, and often aren't. A lot of things have been written on that, and some more room for additional things to be written on that. Well, have you ever wondered what the meaning of life is? Have you ever wondered whether life is a whole, W-H-O-L-E, or a whole, H-O-L-E? Have you ever wondered about that? You know, from time to time, it's pretty normal to imagine that life doesn't seem to have a point. But when you're in a crisis, when you've been adrift for a time, for one reason or another, you may actually even feel unimportant sometimes. That is normal as long as you don't think about it a lot and over a long period of time. It's pretty normal to once in a while feel those things. The most important question is, can we give meaning to life as a whole, W-H-O-L-E? How can we do that? Okay? I want to present to you 3 levels, layers, if you will, where meaning comes to us, where the meaning of life is for us then obvious. And see what you think. The first one is where we work to reach our goals that are derived from our values, our core moral values, okay? So we find a way to exist in the world where in terms of what we do for a living or what we do for avocation, hobbies, where we exhibit our value structure. And within those values, we work to reach our goals. Okay? The second layer, the second place for life meaning comes perhaps and likely from experiencing and improving our connections to the lives of the people we care the most about. Family, close friends, lovers. Where we experience and improve the connections to the lives of those people. You see, experience them and improve them. Okay, there's a lot there. And the third layer or third place where life can be seen as having lots of meaning and where we interact with that is to understand and assist in meeting the needs of other people that we're not well connected to or even not connected to directly, other humans, as well as other living things, where we exhibit our endeavor to improve the lives, in assisting the lives of things in the world, living things and other people that we're not directly connected to, where we choose what we do in light of that. You see? I want you to think about that. Think about that carefully. Now, there's a lot of research on happiness, and I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, it may seem somehow pessimistic, but it's not, that once you accept that on occasion life is some level of suffering, life is, after all, a series of crises to be adapt to and to work our way through, and sometimes there is suffering, yeah. There's painful, mixed with moments of delight. Delight are moments, and to some degree we have the ability to see delightfulness where ordinarily we might not. There are delightful things around us all the time. But mostly life is a series of periods of neither, really. It's a long stretches where life is neither joyous nor suffering or painful. And so if you see life that way, it can actually be joyous overall. If you accept all of that, you see. Does that make sense? So let's talk about happiness and stuff. Happiness does not come from things, and in fact, things can, for some people, be diversions. You've heard of people who acquire things and can't stop. We might call them hoarders if they get to that level where they don't dispose or change out anything. They just accumulate. For hoarders, things take on more importance than relationships. They may actually disavow relationships with family members in preference to things. And they can no longer determine what's valuable among their things. See? But then we could also talk about people who are just addicted to acquiring things, who are shopaholics and Amazonaholics. That's my word. So sometimes people acquire things because they need those diversions to escape focusing on more substantial concerns, to avoid pain, to avoid those deeply conflictual things that they really don't know how or are not ready to deal with. You know, when you buy something or you get something new, it's a diversion all of a sudden. It's fun. Oh, I have a new sweater. Oh, but if it ramps up to a level where this becomes something that blocks you from living a life where things are not important but people are, then we've got an issue. More money does equal more opportunities. It does. There are fewer worries about food, water, warmth, rest, safety, and security, the two biological needs levels of Maslow. But it does not equal better relationships. There's no connection there between having lots of money and having better relationships. It doesn't. Not related to that. What you do with money is the important thing, right? So if you secure food, water, warmth, rest, safety, and security, that's a good thing. If you provide for people who need something to secure their basic needs, when you have a little more and they have less, that's a good thing. So that can increase contentment. Now, money, if you have a lot of it, in fact, there's been research on how much is enough, and beyond a certain level is really too much, in the sense that having too much money can generate things like selfishness and callousness, and can create relationship obstacles. I mean, what happens when somebody is very wealthy? Are the people around them really people who see who they are on the inside? Is that really true? The same occurs when people are extraordinarily attractive. And it's a double whammy when they're extraordinarily attractive and have a lot of money. I've seen this happen, where now they have two barriers to overcome to really make substantial connections to other people. Yeah? Think about that for a minute. Yeah. The truth is that, everybody you've ever known, everybody you're ever going to know, everybody that in those circumstances that you've ever known or will know, or is either going to die or leave you, or you're going to die or leave them. And that's not pessimistic at all. That tells you how important relationships are, doesn't it? It tells you that the thing that we're on earth to do is to improve the relationships that we have. Hence those three things that I talked about that create meaningfulness in life. Okay? So that's not pessimistic. That's inspirational. That, if you think about it, that can be motivating if you think about it. That gives you an opportunity to see what you ought to be spending time on. And as I told you in a different video, people who are dying don't talk about how many good cars they own, or a great house they have, or that they have a great stereo or whatever, or what their newest phone was. No, they want to know the answers to questions like, am I a good person? Was I good to you? Will you sit with me and let me hold your hand? I want to talk to you. I want to apologize. I want to tell you how much you mean to me. Yeah? The do you love me questions. Was I okay for you? That's the kind of thing they want to know. Now, can you struggle with things and not value them? I suspect not. I think struggles magnify values. Do you? If you've never struggled with something, can you value it? Maybe, but maybe not as much. Coming up in part 4, some exercises you're going to like. See you then.